everyone and welcome back to the FPL Family YouTube channel. I'm Sam and today we're going to be talking about potentially the most important part of your FPL team, the premium picks, those that cost the majority of your budget, those that you want to own as many of as possible. But of course, budget restrictions mean that you just have to make some tough decisions and you cannot own them all. Now, last week on our channel, we released a video about rotating defenders, looking at those £4.5 million bargains who you can rotate nicely across your team. If you can own a couple of those, and in a couple of weeks' time, we've got a video coming out about mid-price midfielders. If you can bring in a couple of those and balance your midfield and your defence really nicely, that will give you as much scope as possible for owning your premium picks, which we're going to look at today. Now, we're going to look at the four most expensive players in the game alongside those sitting just below them in terms of price, working out which 1, 2, 3 we should invest in our FPL teams, how many is actually viable if we want to create a team that's not just a team, but that is fully a squad, and we have some bench players that we would actually be happy to play over the course of the season. Now, we are going to start with an FPL royalty, the Egyptian king, Liverpool's Mo Salah. Now, if we start with his price tag, 12.5 million, for me, actually, with Salah, I wouldn't have necessarily been surprised to have seen him come in at 13 million this season. He's been the height of consistent over the last 4 years, registering 22 goals in the season we've just had alongside 5 assists. Looking back to 1920, he got 19 goals and 10 assists. In 18-19, 22 goals and 8 assists. And then in 17-18, he got a whopping 32 goals and 10 assists. This season, he's played 51 games for Liverpool in all competitions, and across all of them has registered 28 goals and 6 assists. So we have seen consistency from Salah, which is unlike what we see from many of the other premium options over the course of the seasons gone by. Now, he's also one of the least injury-prone players. I've said it now. Fingers crossed he gets through this season unscathed too. But we tend to see more consistency of starts from Salah than we do from some of the others, because some of the others have glass ankles, and we'll talk about him shortly. But particularly if we look at Liverpool's opening 6 fixtures, with the exception of Chelsea there in game week 3, the other 5 look perfect for picking Salah as one of your premium picks for this season. Norwich, Burnley, Leeds, Palace and Brentford. Lovely set of fixtures to start the season. Plenty of scope there for goals. And of course those FPL points from Salah. And in fact, I wouldn't be at all surprised to see some triple captainships get played in these early game weeks. Particularly that game against Norwich. We saw what he did against Norwich in the game week, one fixture a couple of seasons ago. I think we could see some really nice things from Salah in that game, and therefore I think there will be some FPL managers that go rogue and play their triple captain early, don't want to hold it, want to get it off their back, and then use it with Salah in game week 1, and I think it might actually go quite well. Now, when we have a look at Salah's underlying stats from the 2021 season, he was the best for XG amongst midfielders, registering 19.23, so ridiculously high XG for him last season. Total shots last season was 126, of those 52 of them on target. He was top for shots last year. 20 of his 22 goals came from inside the box, so proper poacher goals last season, and we like that from a midfielder perspective because it's showing us that he's in all the right places at all the right times. Also, 126 attempts, which was the best amongst midfielders. 33 big chances last season for Salah. 6 penalties, 2 goals from set pieces. There is not a lot to not like about Salah. And this season, of course, Liverpool are seeing some returns for big players, the likes of Virgil van Dijk back from injury. We're starting to see Liverpool getting linked with players in this transfer window. So if they can strengthen their squad, if they can bring in some players to play alongside and in supporting roles, I think that only strengthens Salah and his 12.5 million price tag, particularly as this will be Jota's first full season at Liverpool coming up. And I can see him having a really good impact on Salah, as we saw in the latter part of the 2021 season. Now, moving on from Salah then, going up top, Mr. Glass Ankles himself, another £12.5 million player now. We see Harry Kane here stood proudly in his Tottenham shirt. Whether he'll be stood proudly in a Tottenham shirt come game week 1, we don't yet know. But for the purpose of this video, we'll look at him from a Spurs perspective with the fixtures, but then of course the underlying stats are relevant wherever he chooses to play his football next season. let's hope, Harry, you are still at Spurs for game week 1 and indeed for the entirety of your whole career. Right, so the fixtures for Spurs, actually, unlike Liverpool, look quite mixed. So we have 3 really nice looking fixtures in there, plus 3 really difficult ones. So Manchester City in game week 1, followed by Chelsea and Arsenal in 5 and 6, look really tough. Big clubs, big games, big moments, but we did see Harry Kane perform really well in those games last season. When we look at the other fixtures, we have some tough ones there too. On paper they look fine, but Crystal Palace have a new manager for this season and we're yet to see how Vieira gets on. With Wolves, obviously Spurs now being managed by their old manager, Nuno Espirito Santo, so we again need to see how that works. But you would think that Nuno would have some good insight into that Wolves side and how they might be setting up. And then, of course, Watford in game week 3, which is a bit of a local derby, really. So there's some tough fixtures in there for Spurs and indeed for Kane. But the records speak for themselves. If we have a look at him last season, of course, he won both awards for the most assists and the most goals last season, registering 23 goals and 14 assists just in the Premier League. And when we look at him across all competitions for Spurs last year, he registered 33 goals. In the previous 3 seasons, he's had 18 goals, 17 goals and 30 goals respectively, but he has missed chunks of seasons through injuries, mostly related to his ankle. If we could see some consistency with Kane like we did in 2021, where he missed very, very few Premier League games, in fact far fewer than we thought when he limped off from injury towards the middle of the season. But I think if we can see that continue again next season, then we'll see some really positive returns from Kane next year. He was top for XGI and XG amongst forwards, and he was 3rd for XA across the forwards in the game too last year. 4 penalty goals, 39 attempts from set pieces, and 13 of those were from his head. So getting in all the right places at all the right times. Best minutes per chance ratio against the playing forwards in the game from last season, registering a chance every 22.5 minutes, which was remarkable from Kane, particularly given his positioning on the pitch, where he is often a little bit deeper than we see from the majority of the other forwards across the Premier League. He was 2nd for shots, just behind Salah, but he was top for forward shots. So he is doing the right stuff. When we have a little look at the shots that he did have them, he had 137 of them and 51 of them were on target. Top goal scorer, of course, as I've already mentioned. He was 6 goals more than the next best forward, which again speaks for itself. He was top for assists with 14, 5 more than Jamie Vardy, who historically has been quite good for that. 30 big chances, which was the 4th best among forwards. So actually, in terms of the chances he's getting, he's not getting the best chances across the forward lines in the Premier League, but he is really, really making them work for him. I really was expecting Kane to be 13 million this year, and at 12.5, whether he plays at Spurs or Manchester City, I think he is probably one of the, if not the best premium pick that you could go for, in my opinion. I think actually it probably gets better if he goes to Manchester City, but even at Spurs, with his position, with the way that Spurs play for Harry Kane, I think he will be really popular this season. Moving back into midfield then, and Bruno Fernandes. Now again, another price that surprised me. I was expecting 12.5 for Bruno this season. I wasn't expecting him to come in any cheaper than Salah. The fixtures, like Salah's, look really nice. Leeds, Southampton and Wolves, followed by Newcastle, West Ham and Aston Villa. Really great start to the season for Bruno. And of course, with Portugal dropping out of the Euros and Bruno actually not playing that many minutes for Portugal, he has had a bit of a rest this summer in a way that definitely cannot be said about Harry Kane, who we have just talked about previously. When we have a little look at Bruno over the course of the 2021 season, he got 18 goals, which was 2nd best amongst midfielders. Only Salah scored more goals than him. And of course, he got 14 assists, tied level with Kane. 121 attempts for Bruno last season, which was 2nd best for midfielders, again only behind Salah, with 20 big chances for him. 9 penalty goals of the 10 that Manchester United got last season. He got 9 of them, and he was best for XA amongst midfielders, registering 9.65. So looking really great in terms of his statistics. I think he will only be improved by the arrival of Jadon Sancho at Manchester United, and we'll be talking about him a bit later in a new signing video, which will come up on the channel in a couple of weeks' time. He was 3rd best for shots, with 50 of them in total, on target from 121. He was top for chances created with 95. So his assist potential, as we saw from the number that he received, is absolutely there. And I think the way that the Manchester United team play around Bruno will only continue to make him a great FPL asset. He was also second for touches in the opponent's half, registering 2,036 over the course of the season. For me, Bruno is the premium midfielder of choice. I cannot imagine going into a Premier League season and not owning Bruno. But to own all three of the guys that we've just talked about is going to be nigh on impossible. You're talking about 25 million for Salah and for Kane. Add another 12 million for Bruno, and suddenly we are using up over a third of our budget on three players. You really have to make those cheap assets work if you want to go for all three of them. I'm not saying it's not doable, it definitely is, but be wary of compromising the rest of your side. Now, one premium asset that we haven't really talked about, and I think everyone was more surprised at his price tag, is Kevin De Bruyne. Now, Kevin De Bruyne is a phenomenal footballer. And actually, 12 million is probably reflective of the talent that the man has in his little finger. However, the last couple of seasons haven't exactly been brilliant for him, mostly because of injury. And normally when we have a low-scoring season for a player, we would expect them to take a bit of a dip in price. But we've actually seen Kevin get a rise in price for this season. Only managed 6 goals last season, although did manage 12 assists. Gundogan, Sterling, Torres, Mahrez, Foden all outscored him over the course of the season. Again, that makes that price tag really difficult to stomach. Now, of course, he may have the world's best striker playing alongside him this season. We are yet to see whether Harry Kane does indeed make the move to Manchester City or not. But if he does, that will add to his appeal in terms of assists anyway. He took 87 corners last season. And of those 87, 17 of them were successful. But as I say, only managed the 23 starts. And that for me is a worry when I'm investing 12 million in a player. I would want to see a little bit more consistency from him and a little bit less injury crisis from him. He was fourth for chances created with 80. Above him, Bruno, Mason Mount and Jack Grealish. So was in the right ballpark, but the price tag really puts me off. I'm not saying he's not a premium player. He absolutely is. But of the four that we've just mentioned, he's the one that attracts me least currently. Going into the season, of course, with the fixtures that Manchester City have, that might change. Spurs in game week 1 is going to be a tough fixture. Fans back in stands, going away to Spurs, that's not going to be easy. Followed by Norwich, which looks like a really great game on paper. Then Arsenal and Leicester, again, look on paper to be difficult fixtures, followed by Southampton and then Chelsea, which again, I would have Chelsea up there with potential title winners this year. So that game in game week 6 is going to be difficult. I'm going to be waiting until the end of these 6 game weeks to decide what I do about Manchester City assets, and in particular about Kevin De Bruyne. Now, we do have some other premium assets. Now, these guys range in price from 12 million down to 10 million. So still having that premium price tag, but you're potentially able to add one of these or budget for one of these when you might not be able to budget for an additional of the 4 guys that we've talked about before. So having a quick look at their stats from last season then, Jamie Vardy, of course, in the middle there was top for forward for big chances with 34, 4 more than Harry Kane managed over the course of the season. He also had a goal conversion rate of 18.3, which is more than Kane, but actually strangely less than teammate Iheanacho. So again, there's a question mark over whether it's worth paying the additional for Vardy over Iheanacho. Did manage 8 penalty goals last season, and of course that is something that Jamie Vardy has in his locker at all times. We've got Son on the graphic there too. 17 goals for him last season and 11 assists. One of the best seasons that Son has had in a very, very long time. And his partnership with Kane was definitely responsible for that. Whether Kane stays or not will determine, I think, how good value Son looks to be over the course of this season. He was third for goals amongst midfielders. He also took 96 corners for Spurs last season. 27 of those were successful. That was the 4th best in terms of success rate across the game. Managed 36 starts for Spurs, so more consistent than a lot of the other premiums in terms of the level of starts. We've got Aubameyang in there also. Just the 57 attempts for Aubameyang last season and 14 big chances. Did not have the best of seasons last year, and obviously we've seen him move positions again back to a forward in the game. He's got the same goal conversion rate as Salah, better than Bruno, so was kind of converting the chances that he was getting, but just not enough chances. Only managed the 26 starts as well. So for me, I would need to see more starts from Aubameyang, and I would need to see those chances that he was getting increase over the course of the season. And if that can happen with the conversion rate as it is, if he can maintain that alongside more chances, then he may come back as an asset again. But when we're talking about owning the likes of Kane, I don't think that you're going to be looking at Aubameyang. And actually, when you have to make a choice between Aubameyang and Vardy, who are priced the same this time around, I think Vardy would win for me of the two of them. And then we've also got on here Raheem Sterling, who has had an absolutely phenomenal Euro Championship for England this summer. He has played the best football that I've seen him play across the course of the whole year. In fact, I think he's been significantly better than he was for Manchester City last time out. 10 goals and 2 assists for City last season, which was the second best amongst the City options last year. He had a better XGI than KDB, but of course he did play more games than him. 28 starts for Sterling last season, and he did seem to fall out of favour a little bit with Pep. And we have had links with him being moved away from the club this summer, potentially in a swap move for Kane, although he didn't really seem that keen. So we just have to see what happens with Sterling. Again, because of those Manchester City fixtures, here's one that I'm going to sleep on a little bit for the first 6 game weeks and maybe look to invest if he gets his spot starting in their lineup at City, if indeed he still is at City next season. And of course, depending upon when those fixtures change for Manchester City. And then the final player we've got on here is Mane. Now, he is the one that shocked me the most of all of the prices in here. I was expecting a fair difference between Mane and Salah in terms of their prices. He was the third best for XG amongst midfielders, only beaten by Salah and Bruno. So his underlying stats do look fine. He had 31 starts for Liverpool last season. But I just think at his price tag, he's very expensive when you're looking to have Salah, and I don't think you would go with the Mane-Salah double up. I think if you wanted to double up with the Liverpool midfielders, you would be looking to go Jota. Now, when we have a little look, of course, at premiums generally across last season, we can see from their total points that there wasn't a lot of difference between them. Bruno at 244, Kane at 242, Salah 231, Son 228, Vardy 187, and then Mane down at 176. And we could go a bit lower, Sterling 154, KDB 141, and Aubameyang 131. Those top picks, Bruno, Kane, Salah, and potentially Son as well, I think they're going to be the most popular premium assets this season. And actually, looking at the numbers, there's not a huge amount of difference between them. But if you can budget for as many of them as possible, you're going to be in the best place. When we look at goals, we can see Kane up in top with 23, followed by Salah 22, Bruno 18, Son 17, Vardy 15, Mane 11, Aubameyang and Sterling both on 10. So again, not a huge amount of difference, but it's still Kane, Salah and Bruno who are the standout premium picks going into the season. For assists, we've got Vardy, Bruno and Kane all ending up on 14 assists last season. KDB with 12, Mane with 11, as was Son, and then Sterling with 9 and Salah with 6. So when we're looking at assist potential, again, it's Bruno and Kane that are standing out. So they look to be the best options for getting the most points, the most goals, and also the most assists. And then for bonus points, yet again, we find Kane sitting at the top with 40, followed by Bruno with 36 and Son with 26. Vardy came in at 23, Salah 21, and KDB 19. So if we are looking to invest in premiums for a long period of time, in fact, if you want to set and forget on your premiums over the course of the season, the underlying stats from 2021 suggest that it's Bruno and Kane that you want to do that for. But it's a very, very brave FPL manager that overlooks Mohamed Salah. And I think, actually, are we trying to find a way to build all 3 of them into my team? And if I can't, then I'll be looking maybe towards Son to help me balance the load in terms of the budget. That's it for premiums. As I say, in a couple of weeks' time, we've got a video coming out on midfielders and the best mid-price midfielders, because we're going to really need as much help as we can get if we are going to be able to afford all of these premium options that we want. Thanks for watching, guys. Before you go, hit that like button. If you haven't already done so, hit the subscribe button and leave me a comment to tell me which premium players you think you are going to be investing in for the 21-22 season.